piglets from lame sows, they are more aggressive because after you mix the piglets, to establish hierarchy, they use fights, or some others use other kind of coping systems like escape.
Welcome to the Swine at Canada podcast. I am Dan Columbus, your host for today's episode. And with me today, I have Dr. Marisol Parada Sarmiento, who is a postdoctoral fellow at the Swine Teaching and Research Center at the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show, Marisol.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much.
I know most of today's episode is going to be about kind of your journey and where you've done it, but just so that our listeners have an idea of who they're listening to, I'll just ask that you give a little brief introduction to yourself.
Sure. As you said, my name is Marisol, and I'm a vet. I got my degree at the National University of Colombia in South America. I also had 2 PhDs in animal welfare. And as you said, I am a researcher now at the University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So we'll get a little bit more into a lot more into your journey and how you've ended up where you are, where you've come from, because you have received training, in many places, and your journey has taken you all over. So maybe we could just get started with telling us a little bit more about your academic journey, and then specifically how you developed your interest in animal welfare.
Well, I started vet school in Colombia, and it's 6 years. It's different. Like in US, you don't have to go to college before. It's like a complete program of 6 years. And I got mostly interest into welfare and animals based on the sense of responsibility to the others that need help. That doesn't mean if it's only animals, but to me also humans and environment. And when I discovered animal welfare early during my vet school, I was like, this is what I want to go. This is the place that I think I can do something different, not only for our animals, but also for humans and environment. So that's how it started. In Bogota, in Colombia, the capital of Colombia.
So then you obviously finished your vet program. You decided now to go into graduate school, and you focused on pregnant sows and lameness. So maybe just how did that come along? And then we can get into some specifics of the projects that you worked on.
Yes, so in vet school, at the very end, we have a mandatory internship. And I decided that I want to go somewhere in South America that someone very good was working with animal welfare, independently of the species or the area. And there's when I found, thanks to one colleague, Dr. Adrão de Zanella. He was at the University of São Paulo for about 3 years. He's Brazilian, but he has been all over the world as well in the area of animal welfare. And I just wrote an email, and he accepted me to do the internship. And then I got the first paper. It's based on what I did on my that period during my internship. I got a database about lameness and information from pregnant girls and their offspring. And it becomes my project, my PhD project. Yes.
So did the interest in pigs come before or after your internship?
So the pigs, I was never interested in pigs before, probably because I'm from a city. So we are usually moved to work with cats and dogs. And I was like, they are too loud. And, the place is not quite good. And lameness, also when I was working with horses at the university, I was like, oh, that's so hard, lameness. And then I just jump into that internship. I was like, hey, you have this data set. What do you think? Would you like to work on it? Like, okay, it's about pigs and lameness. Why not? It was my opportunity, to
Yeah.
let them know that I am valuable. And look what happened. I have my PhD working on that, and now I love pigs.
Yeah.
I'm still working with pigs, so
Yeah.
yes.
This seems to be a common story. I've interviewed quite a few people now on this, right? And it's one of those things where they never think that they're going to work with pigs, and then they get into it. Even in agriculture, it's not even just a city thing, right? Like people don't really see the pig as an option, and then once they get in it, they love it. I was the same way. I dog and cats, but then I like here I am working in pigs, right? So
Yes.
it's very common. So okay, so you had this data set, and then this leads to your PhD. So maybe just tell us more about what you did for your PhD and some of the findings that you came across.
Sure. So during the internship, everything is like a chain, no?
Yeah.
So during the internship, one guy from Italy, Matteo, my friend Matteo, he was doing his PhD in Italy at the same place that after I got my PhD. And I finished the internship, and then he just reached me, "Hey Marisol, there's a PhD scholarship. Would you like?" Well, well, I would love to. And I talk also with Adroaldo because the initial idea of lameness and the consequences of lameness during pregnancy in the offspring, it comes from Adroaldo and Adroaldo's group. And then I talk to him, he agrees, and then we managed to organize a double degree program. So basically, the PhD question, it was how lameness during late pregnancy impact the development of offspring. And we have many outcomes. I am still in process to finish some of the manuscripts, but the first two that are already published, it comes out that piglets from lame sows, they are more aggressive because after you mix the piglets, they to establish hierarchy, they use fights, or some others use other kind of coping systems like escape. And we measure that basically doing pictures of their body to count skin lesions. So they have more skin lesions, these piglets. They also are lighter at weaning. It was also published something about the mechanism that could be underlying the changes of these piglets. And we took some samples of placenta, since it's the organ that communicate what's happening and the nutrients and everything to the piglet. And we find out that cortisol, as a stress hormone in that case, it should be inactivated from the placenta and transferred to cortisone to protect the piglet from the fetus, in that case, from the active cortisol. And that relation between cortisol and cortisone, it was affected in lame and in the placenta from lame sows. That placenta was less efficient in doing that transformation, that inactivation of cortisol into cortisone. So probably the fetus was drawn in more cortisol than piglets from sows without lameness. So that could be kind of the mechanism.
But that's really interesting because I think one of the things, when we talk about lameness, it's more the longevity of the sow and her productivity, not necessarily that of the piglets. And this is a very interesting result, I think. So, obviously then the placenta is not operating the way it should, but did you look at what potentially the mechanism for that with the sow's lameness?
I'm not sure if they produce more cortisol because lameness is a painful and a stressful condition. And that condition, it changed their social behavior, their feeding behavior, their maternal behavior. If you are lame, you can't reach and access resources at the same level of sound animals, or you don't want to interact if you are feeling pain. So it's the whole scenario of stress, and probably it's related with cortisol during the late stage of pregnancy. And we just to bring it here, why late pregnancy? Because it's the time that the central nervous system develop most. So it's when we could try to find something in the offspring, and something that we haven't published but it's under review now, that to me is like boom, their perception of pain, the piglets perception of pain, it was different. So we use an instrument that is called algometer, so we can measure nociception. It's something kind of pain perception based on pressure in different points. And when the animal has a reaction when we do that pressure, like a withdraw a leg, that's in grams or pounds, as you would like to say. That's the threshold of pain. And piglets from lame sows, we have to make more pressure to have a response from them. So they are more resistant to pain, to nauseous stimuli. And it's sometimes tricky to talk about pain because in a very quickly perspective, you can say, well, that's nice. They are not feeling that much pain. No, but pain as an evolutionary mechanism, it's there to protect us from harmful stimuli. And if they're not feeling that well, I don't know if that, because that could be also related with aggression, because these skin lesions are painful at some point for these piglets. So it's pretty interesting, and it changed their perception of pain. That's also pretty nice. It's under review, that information.
So when you were doing these studies, and you obviously had your lame sows, was that at a certain point in gestation, or was it throughout gestation that they were considered lame?
For the first paper, it was through the whole gestation. I work with that data set that it comes from the work of Tiago Bernardino. Is related to something else, but we also use to look at the effects of lameness. And during my PhD, the information I got, I assessed the animals through the whole gestation, but I consider only the locomotion scores in the last third of gestation.
So they could have been lame before, but you only measured it in that one. Okay, that makes sense. Any other projects and conclusions that kind of you want to put out there?
Welfare in this case is not only affecting sows, as we can see, because it's affecting the coping style of their offspring. Animals that are more aggressive, it's not nice to work with them, or if they are more scared as well, it's not nice to work with them. That brings me some also to some other that is going to be also in that paper. We use some behavioral tests to assess explorative behavior and fear. They've been used with mice before, and then they were used with pigs. It's called open field and novel object test. I don't know if you have heard about it, but for the novel object test, the animal it's in an individual pen that has never been there, and we introduce an unknown object. In that case, it was a transit cone, and we measure the time that takes the animal to touch that object or get closer to that object, just to infer fear about novelty. And piglets from lame sows, they have more fear. They take long time to go and touch that object. and that's also is something that we as like producers, they don't want to work with fear animals. They want like a smooth handling of animals, uh, nice animals. You want, yes. So it's pretty cool.
Talking about coping, you mentioned at the beginning that you did a double PhD, which to me is needs a lot of coping. And not a
It
lot of
needs
people
a
I
lot of
think would sign
coping.
on to that and do well, right? So maybe let's just talk about your experiences with that and how, that created a different experience for you and how you coped with that.
I started being a student from the University of Teramo when I started my PhD in Italy. But at the time I start my project in Brazil. That was a whole adventure because I need to have documentation in Italy and things like bureaucracy, I could say, in
Mm.
Italy. And I wasn't there. I was in Brazil. That friend Mateo helped me through all the process. People there, they thought that I was his girlfriend. Like, why are you doing all of it for this girl that we have never seen? And it's like, he's my friend. She's coming at some point. Um, so that part was tricky. There are so many challenges when you're doing a PhD, and starting from bureaucracy and then science and social challenges. But I really have most of my PhD like nice memories.
Mm.
I love my period as doing my PhD, and then the process now of constructing the design of the experiment, buying animals, training to do all of these tests, getting instruments and tools, many meetings with your tutor. And then I was there for 1 year and a half in Brazil at the University of Sao Paulo. I met my current husband there during my starting my PhD, and it's like, hey, I'm going. See you when I come back. I have to go to Italy and see you there, maybe. But when I moved to Italy, it was in late 2019, and then in 2020, in Italy was crazy with the pandemic, and I had all my ideas about doing replicate same experiment there, but with other measures, uh, and everything was closed. So was hard. I was by myself at that point. My boyfriend never came because it was stuck in Brazil, and only when they leave us go out during summer they open. I don't know why in Europe they made it, but in summer I think people was so stressed to be inside, and it was decreasing the infections of COVID. And it comes summer, everybody wants to go out, so they open everything, and that was my time to go to the farm and do my experiment. So being in gestation, then being in maternity, and that Italian summer, like dropping and collecting samples and data, that was very challenging. It was very challenging. Uh, but I have the data, and it's been in
Yeah.
the way to get published, and I I remember all of that with love, and also being proud of me. I think to kind of be able to cope with all those challenges. Yes.
Yeah. PhD is about challenging yourself. I think you had more than your fair share, but obviously it was you passed the test. You got through it, and that's really what it is about. So like you said, you've worked in different countries now. You've done the work. So what have you found between different pig production systems and their level of welfare in the different countries that you've worked?
Okay, well, in Brazil, I was having contact with a genetic farm. So probably it's different than other Brazilian farms, I would say. They are more rigorous in many parts of the system. It was a really nice farm. It's called Top Gen. I have to be so thankful to them because they help me. They open the doors and they sell animals for us. I think the main differences probably between Brazil and Europe is the legislation about animal welfare. There are some things that are unacceptable now in Europe, like having sows during the whole gestation or their whole lives in crates. This is still allowed in, I think, the whole America continent. But in Europe, it's allowed only during the first 30 days of gestation be crated. And same for painful procedures. That's something that it keeps concerning me about farm animals, not only with pigs. There are many procedures that you are not having control of pain, like castration, for example. And that's still very similar between both places. There's no there's no legislation about giving them analgesia or anesthesia to do it. From a practical perspective, it's very hard to think about. Uh, but something that is different in Brazil that I like is that they've been using a lot immunocastration. That's wide used in Brazil. And Brazil is the fourth large producer in the world of pork. So that means a lot. And some other countries, they are not using immunocastration. There are many things behind of it that I'm not going to go through this because it's not my area. But yeah, painful procedures and housing system, it's probably the main difference that I've seen between Europe and Brazil and also here in United States.
So looking to the future, I guess, a little bit, maybe talking about the projects that you're working on for your postdoc and kind of where you see this going.
Well, here at UPenn, I'm working with Dr. Tom Parsons. He's my mentor here. I started 2 years ago with a huge project. I think other people drop out the project before me because probably it's a longitudinal study. And we are looking to get a more objective idea of welfare. Of course, using the current indicators of welfare, basically that's behavior, physiology, but we are going through other kind of biomarkers. But since it's very recent, I mean, we haven't published yet, um, probably I can't talk that much about it. But it's, yes, like giving another approach, more objective approach to measure animal welfare.
Yeah. Well, looking forward to it. Once you are able to talk about it, I think we'll have to have you back on and you can discuss the results that you find. I know, even in the nutrition world, especially for like gut health, we're looking at biomarkers because it's a nice objective measure. And then if there's something that you can just take a sample and know what's going on, then that
Exactly,
makes it easier.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've been working a lot with saliva, for example, because it's non-invasive. It's like the best sample if you can measure things there. But it's tricky as well for some biomarkers.
Well, definitely looking forward to that. Um, so I think we're coming to the end. So I'll just ask if you have a take-home message that you want the listeners to get from today's episode. What would that be?
Pigs are amazing animals. They're very smart. They're sentient animals. And as they deserve welfare, people who is working with them deserve well-being, and is both connected with the healthy environment. So I think there are many things to think about to make pig production more sustainable for everybody, environment, humans, and animals. And I think there's a lot of people working on that. We just have to keep going to make it better for everybody. I just want to say thank you for inviting me. Thank you to the University of São Paulo, University of Teramo, my both tutors at that point, Adroaldo and Giorgio, and the both farms that helped me, Topgen and Collevarone in Italy, and Fapespi, who pay part of the project in Brazil. And thanks to you for reaching me. And
No, very good. Before I let you go, I do have 3 more questions for you.
okay.
It's time for our famous 3. Working with nature and not against it, piglets fed AX3 see significant and improved feed efficiency. Producers know the reality of needing to reduce antibiotic and zinc use. AX3 Digest is a highly digestible novel protein that promotes improved in-barn performance, piglet health, and minimizes the need for zinc in the diet. For more information, visit www.protecta.com. That's www.protecta.com.
So our first question, and I don't think you know about these, so maybe you're not as prepared, but our first question is, what is your favorite swine-related resource?
Recently, I have a really nice book that it's Understanding and Improving Animal Welfare of Pigs. It was edited by Sandra Edwards. That one is recently that I've been using because it's pretty cool because it's well written. Everything has a citation of papers, so you can go back to the basic part. And if not, papers. I used to just read papers. That's what I do.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So our next question is a favorite book or something outside of pigs.
One is The Little Prince from Antoine Exupéry, I think is his name. Even if it's for kids, I think it's also for adults. There are so many things there to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And the other topic that I like to read is philosophy. My dad recently gave me a book from Seneca, Stoicism, and how keep balance in everything is important from a philosophical perspective. Yes.
Great. And then our last question is, and this will be an interesting one because you had many mentors that you just listed. You know, when you look back at them, what is a characteristic that you think that they all share that makes them good mentors, good leaders?
Yes, they all care about me as a human first than as a researcher. How are you? How your things are going? You should be happy to do a good job. To me, that's something that is very valuable from all of them. Yes, being human.
Well, thank you again for coming on. This has been a very interesting conversation, and I am looking forward to seeing some of your results from your postdoc.
Wow, thank you, Daniel.
We'll reach out again once you are able to talk about that.
Sure, thank you so much.